Just letting everybody know. All right, so thank you for joining us today. This is going to be an informational discussion on the CPS volunteer and vendor status processes. So to get started, we are just going to go through some housekeeping items. And here we are. So as I said, we are recording. Feel free to take care of your own needs during this session. We will be going straight through and not taking a break. So this will be a presentation format where we have our speakers that are going to be sharing the information. We have recorded all the questions that you provided us in the registration, so thanks for doing that ahead of time. Let's wait till the end to make sure that we get our answers to the questions that we've had, but I do have Alexi and Lakia who will be in the chat checking if you have additional questions that come up. Of course, we always have more that come up. But also please understand with some of the questions, they might be very specific or nuanced to your own organization. So anything like that, you may have to reach out to your partnership specialist or to the volunteer department or procurement department for anything that's very specific or nuanced in that sense. We admittedly are generalizing the information that we're sharing today, but that way we can all get, kind of equal footing on what we're here to discuss today. So goals for today are that, we want to clarify that the status that you have for vendor volunteer is the same whether you are in person or live virtual. We're going to take you through understanding what it means to become a CPS vendor and the differences between the level 1 and 2 requirements. And then finally, we're going to navigate the vendor onboarding sponsorship process and what tier 1 and 2 status requirements are for those. So just as a reminder, with Communities and Schools of Chicago, we are working with no-cost programming. So purchase orders, any questions that have to do with that in vendor status, don't directly apply to the programming that you all offer for us. So any kind of questions with purchase orders and things like that may have to wait for another time. All right, so the agenda, we're going to start with the volunteer process, and then we're going to go into vendor. Through each section, we are going to have the chance at the end for Q&A through the chat, and then at the very end, we are going to have a poll just to get your general feedback. So at this time, I'm going to introduce to you who our speakers are going to be. We have Lori, who is the volunteer coordinator at CPS with the Family and Community Engagement Office. And we have Nicole Waits, who is the Vendor Support Services Manager at CPS in the Department of Procurement. I'm going to let them introduce themselves when they start their portions of this session. So to start, we're just going to go through a quick video. This is a video through the Ingenuity website that, we had put together with them a couple of years back when we did a session like this. It's just going to help set the tone for the volunteer and vendorship differences and as we move forward.
CPS vendors versus CPS volunteers. What is the difference between vendors, no-cost vendors, strategic source vendors, and volunteers? Vendors are any suppliers with active vendor numbers that do business with Chicago Public Schools for up to $25,000 per school per year. Strategic source vendors are suppliers that have contracts with the Chicago Public Schools District and are allowed to spend above the $25,000 annual limit. There will be an opportunity every few years for CPS partners to become a strategic source vendor. No-cost vendors are suppliers that are able to provide their services for free. All no-cost vendors still require an active vendor number and must complete a no-cost services agreement for each program with each school every year. Rather than providing their own services or programs, volunteers support CPS programs and initiatives by providing their time and engaging with their local school to support student learning. Volunteer experiences can be mutually rewarding to students, parents, partners, and schools. CPS offers two different levels of volunteer involvement and commitment. Examples of level 1 volunteers include overnight field trip chaperones, mentors, tutors, coaches, and non-supervised classroom assistants. Examples of level 2 volunteers include day field trip chaperones, assistants in schools with administrative duties, and those doing other volunteer activities in contact with students while being supervised. Prospective volunteers must register with Family and Community Engagement by completing the required CPS volunteer application forms and satisfying the requirements of the applicant review process. As part of the application process, you will receive an email asking you to complete a background check and submit the report. CPS pays the fee for the background check. Background checks are run annually for returning level 1 volunteers. You will also be asked to submit TB test results that are less than 2 years old. We will provide information about where you can be tested. CPS does not cover the cost of the TB test. Volunteers who plan to return for the following school year must notify their school by July 1 of each year. Returning volunteers do not need to submit new applications annually. For questions about the volunteer opportunities and your application, please email volunteer@cps.edu or call 773-553-1544.
Okay. So at this time, I am going to stop sharing screen. We're going to dive right into the volunteer process. I would like to introduce Lori. So let's welcome Lori in. She's going to introduce herself and take us through the volunteer process.
Thank you so much, Katya. And hello everybody. I'm so happy to be here today. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So yeah, my name is Lori Rivera, and I am one of the volunteer coordinators with the Office of Family and Community Engagement. And here with me, I have today also Kyla Hardy. She's another volunteer coordinator. She may be able to answer some of the questions that are in the chat if any of them come up, or we can go over them at the end of the presentation as well. So today we're going to learn about who is a volunteer, volunteer levels, volunteer application process, and the requirements for level 1 and level 2, as well as the application renewal for every school year. And that was a very informational video, I must say. I don't think I had seen that one before, but I really like it because it does sum up most of the information that we have here today. So I want to start with who is a volunteer in CPS. So it's a person who participates in a CPS-sponsored event to support or interact with students without receiving any financial compensation. So this can include parents, legal guardians, community members, community-based organizations, or even CPS employees who are volunteering on their own personal time. And like the video said, we do have two different levels of volunteering, level 1 and level 2. And right before diving into the rest, I want to just talk a little bit about who is not a volunteer. Sometimes a lot of people get confused with other categories of individuals that come and support our schools. For example, local school members are not considered volunteers. Student teachers or field experience individuals are not volunteers, and also vendors. So CPS has very specific clearance processes, and the clearance for each department, it's only for that specific department. So if any of these other individuals would like to volunteer, they would need to go through our process entirely. Fingerprints are not transferable from one department to another. So now we're going to talk about volunteer levels. So level 1 volunteers are parents or guardians of students who volunteer in a school for over 10 hours a week, or any individuals who do not have a child enrolled at the school and they volunteer for over 5 hours a week. Also, any parent or any individual who will attend an overnight field trip, anyone that will have one-on-one contact with a student. all volunteer coaches, all tutors, and this includes virtual tutors, and all mentors, and all chaperones for day field trips without a CPS staff supervising the group if they break up into smaller groups. So basically, anybody who volunteers for over their um, allowed amount of time, whether it's 10 hours or 5 hours. And if you will not be supervised by a CPS staff, you must be level 1. And then we also have level 2. So this would include a parent or guardian chaperoning a day field trip, as long as they stay with the CPS employee present at all times. So if you remain with the teacher or with a CPS employee during the field trip, you're allowed to be a level 2. Also, guest speakers at events or assemblies, individuals serving as academic judges for competitions, corporate volunteers who only volunteer for one day, parent volunteers who are in the school for under 10 hours a week and are always supervised, or individuals volunteering for under 5 hours a week and they don't have a child enrolled at the school, but they are also supervised. And also any individuals taking classes in parent universities or in schools with courses provided by the city colleges of Chicago. Also, prom chaperones would be considered level 2. So to complete the volunteer application, if this is your first time completing the application and you've never submitted one before, you will visit cps.edu/volunteer and you will select new volunteer. So then a new screen will come up and just follow the instructions, complete all of your information that is required. It should be marked with a red asterisk. And please make sure that you use your legal name and an accurate date of birth before you hit submit. A lot of the times there's some typos or people use nicknames, and especially if you're a level 2, that makes it a little bit hard because we do the name checks in-house. So we just want to make sure that when we're running this background checks or the registry checks, that we have the most accurate information to make sure that everyone that's going into the schools is allowed to be near children. If you are a returning volunteer, meaning that you have submitted an application in the past, you should already have an account with CPS, so you don't have to create a new one. And instead, you would go to the same website, cps.edu/volunteer, but instead you will select current volunteer. You will be prompted to enter your email and the password, which were created when you did your first volunteer application. And once you are inside the website, the system, you will navigate to applications. And there will be a button that says create new application. So all of your information will be pre-filled. You don't have to enter any of your personal information, but if anything has changed, you'll be able to edit it from there and just add the school or the organization that you'll be volunteering with. And then you click submit. So after you hit submit in the system, you will receive an email telling you to submit your ID to the schools. If you selected CIS, Communities in School, for example, which probably most of you will do, somebody from CIS will actually move your application to the next steps. I'm not sure how they collect IDs or if they do, but once they move your application to the next steps, then you'll get an email. If you selected schools, just know that you do have to present your ID to them before anything can proceed at this point. And also, if you added CIS, for example, but you go to a school and they are requesting that you add them, you will have to add them because that is the only way that they can make sure in our system that you have been approved. If the school is not listed on an application, they technically don't know that you've been approved. So a lot of schools will accept like the approval letter saying CIS or your organization's name, but some schools just go the extra step and they just want to make sure that everything is in order and they will ask that you add them in your school. If that's the case, you can always log back in into the application and just add them. It takes like 2 minutes to do that. And then acceptable forms of ID are state IDs, driver's license, matricula, military ID, or passport. Basically, any government issue ID that has your picture, your name, and your date of birth will work. If you are a level 1 volunteer, you will receive the email with the next steps within 24 hours of the school or the organization moving your application to the next steps. And in your email, you will receive 3 requirements or instructions for 3 requirements. The first one is the full fingerprint background check, and we will provide the specific forms that you need to use. There are different forms within CPS. For example, vendors also use forms to get fingerprinted if they need to, and they look very similar. But the information within those forms is a little bit different so that the results can be routed to each specific department. So please make sure that you do have the forms that are provided by our department so that we can receive and use those results. The second requirement will be proof of freedom from tuberculosis, so a TB test. We accept anything from skin test to blood test to x-ray to doctor's notes, anything from a medical professional letting us know that you are free from TB, we will accept, and they will be valid for 2 years. Excuse me. Starting on the date of the results.
Nothing like a live theater to have a pause.
Oh, okay. Sorry, she's coming back. Sorry.
You got it, Kyla?
Yes.
Thank
Okay, can
you.
everyone hear me? Okay, yeah. So I'll just start over with the screen. So within 24 hours of the volunteer coordinator's approval, we will send a follow-up email with the instructions on the next steps. So the first step, sorry, it's not in that order, but just on the thing, the background check. So volunteers have to present the form that we give on the email to Accurate Biometrics, and then they will process the application and send us the results. You can also email us the form they give you back just for faster processing, so we don't have to wait for them to send the information over. We can already see it in our system. We also ask for the proof of a TB test. We do not cover this fee, unlike the background check, which is covered by us. So we do offer a plan with Concentra, and you can get a $30 discount. But if you have, your own doctor and you can get it for free, we do recommend that you do that. We don't have a specific location that you have to go to for the TB test. And then the last requirement is the safe school trainings. We will send you an email with the link on how to create an account, or if you already have an account, you can register, and then you'll see those courses already assigned to you. Once completed, we ask that you email us back those completion certificates or just a screenshot showing that you completed it, and then we will upload this to your application and clear that for you. The application will be approved once we receive all of these. And then, like we said, the background check can take anywhere from 7 to 30 business days to complete. As of late, it's been about 5 to 10 days. It really just depends on where we're at in the school year. But we do want to make note of that just in case you aren't receiving clearance within a week. Let's see. I'm not sure if I can change the slides since it's on her laptop, but I'll just wait for her to come back. Sorry about that.
I did make you a co-host, but yeah, I'm not sure you'll
Okay,
be
let me
able to,
see if I can.
if you can or not.
Kabi, I would recommend let Kaylee be the share her screen if that's the case.
Okay, let me see. 1 second. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I hope she's all right.
Yeah, she just went to the bathroom real quick. Let's see.
While we're paused, I can answer Katie's question in the chat, I believe. So she had asked, a few years ago, we were told by a school that even though we're a vendor, we need to fill out a volunteer application and get background checked. Though this year we received instructions from OSL that since we are a no-cost vendor, we need to go through the vendor background check process and do not need to fill out a volunteer application. Can someone go over kind of the differences here? Katie, from my understanding, OSL is correct. So if your organization is an approved vendor with CPS, that means any staff or volunteers that are going into the building with your organization would need to go through the vendor background check process. And so you should be able to find there's a form that you'll use. They'll go in and they'll get a specific background check underneath your vendor number. And then they'll get an email from CPS giving them a TCN number that states that they are approved for basically all CPS schools. That's one of the benefits of being a vendor, is that you'll have clearance for all schools versus when you go through the volunteer route, it's school by school specific. Like they were speaking to earlier, and Lori was saying you need to go back into your volunteer application and add the different schools as you are going to be working with them. So if you are a vendor, folks that are going into schools will be background checked underneath your vendor number and then should have approval for any and all CPS schools with their TCN number.
And we will get more into that a little bit in the vendor side of things. I am going to see if I can pull this presentation up myself.
Okay,
So
thank you.
yeah. Oh, all right. Shh. Technology is so fun. All right. Apologize about the pause. She back?
Okay.
Okay,
I am so sorry.
it's okay. I'm just concerned. I was going to start sharing, but why don't you go ahead and share your screen again since you've got it,
Okay.
since you've
I
got it right.
apologize. As I told you, I was coming out of a cold and I just got a horrible cough,
Yeah,
like
no,
coughing
all
spell.
good. All good.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share again and we can start over. Well,
Kyla just went through one of those slides that you left off on, so we can go to the next
okay.
one.
So this should finish level 1.
Yes.
Okay. So are we good to go to level 2 then? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. So, apologies again, but we're back now. So, there is one big update for level 2 this school year, and it is the last school year. The board amended the requirements for all volunteers to reflect that all volunteers should take some sort of of training regarding student safety. So, level 2 volunteers are also now required to take training. So once your application is moved to the next steps, either by a school or communities in schools or another organization, you will automatically receive an email with the instructions and the link to complete it's called CPS parent training. And I know that probably to this group, they're not parents, that doesn't apply to you, but it's still a video just on general student safety, Title IX, how to report abuse, things of that nature. It's just 19 minutes, so all you have to do is just watch it. And at the end, you get a certificate. So just email us that certificate, a screenshot, or the PDF format, whatever is easier for you. Email it back to us, and as soon as you email us that, we will be able to approve your application. So right now, we do have a big backlog because this is the most busy time of the year. So it's taking us about a day or 2 at most to get to each to open up those emails, but we are working diligently to make sure that we are clearing level 2 applications as soon as possible. There is one exception though. So for level 2 volunteers that will only go to the school one time, for example, presenters or performers. So this is a one-time occasion. You will never go back to the school. So you're not an ongoing volunteer and you will not have contact with students. There is a question on the application where it asks you if you are a one-time volunteer, like performer or a presenter. If you answer yes, you don't have to complete it. We will just do the quick name check and you'll be approved automatically. But that is only if you will go to the school one time and you won't have any contact with students. For example, parents who go to the school only one time but go on a field trip, they still have to complete it because they will be interacting with the students. And then last but not least, just a reminder that approvals are only valid for one school year and they all expire on June 30th. So once July 1st hits, you can go ahead and then follow the instructions for the returning volunteer, log in into your application and just resubmit for the new school year. So you don't have to recreate a whole new account. Just make sure that you are completing that step every school year so that we can recheck your background checks and you can redo the training for the new school year. And then this is our contact information. This is the website, our phone number. You can call us 773-553-1544 or always email us to volunteer@cps.edu. And then that's the end of our presentation. Thank you so much. And then we'll take any questions.
Great. I do have some of the questions that are already listed on some slides. So we are going to
I'm gonna stop sharing.
start here. And okay, so some of this has gone answered already, but just kind of reiterating. So one of the questions was, what do we need? How much time in advance and how long does the process take? So Lori, as you said, it's going into the application. And most folks, I'll let you go ahead and answer it.
Yeah. So for level 2, give or take from the moment that you submit the training, or from the moment that you are moved to the next steps, and you submit the training, give about 2-3 business days. For it may be faster, right? Like it doesn't always take us that long, but just be mindful of that. That sometimes, like right now, we do have big volumes of applications coming in, so that may take longer. But usually, we try to be pretty quick, with that. We try to have everybody clear within 24 hours, but it may take up to 2 to 3 business days. For level 1, it's a little bit different because that has more steps. And then the training is a little bit longer. So some individuals' background check clears within a couple of days, and other individuals can take like 20 business days, and we have no idea why.
Oh.
Some individuals, if there's any arrest on your record, you may get asked for additional information. So also be mindful of that. So it can take anywhere really between 7 to 30 business days, depending on how fast you complete the requirements and mostly how fast the background check comes. Like if there's nothing on your record, you should be clear within, I would say, 10 days. That's, everybody's a little bit different, but for the most part, we see results coming in pretty quick, actually. They don't take that long.
And, for most of our partners, they are level 2. There's only a few that fall into that level 1 category. So, okay. Just clarifying again, fingerprinting is not required for
for level 2, that you don't
level
require.
2, correct. And TB testing, if you want to clarify that again, and then
Yes.
I don't believe COVID testing is required anymore at all.
Correct. COVID vaccination is completely gone. You don't have to provide that anymore. TB test, it gets renewed every 2 years. So from the date of your results. So if your results were today, then they'll be valid for the next 2 years starting today.
Great.
And you may get that email saying you have to submit them. This just to remind you that that's a requirement. But if they're still valid, we still have them in the system. You don't have to submit them.
Perfect. So yeah, we have basically already answered this, that the Safe Schools training is required for level 2 clearance. So that is that. In the follow-up information for everybody participating today, we do have an internal document that puts the vendor volunteer information side by side with some links. So I will be sending that to all of you in the follow-up email. Okay, just a couple more here. Is the volunteer approval process going through the Office of College and Career Success, FACE, or does each CPS department that relates to your organization or program manage the approval?
Um, so Office of College and Career Success, they in the previous years they had their own process, but this year we took ownership of that. So when you go on the application, there is an option to select OCCS, which is them, and they are the ones like moving your application to the next steps. And we're approving them just as level 2 volunteers.
Okay.
And then we do have different departments also who have volunteers come into the schools. You would also find those departments listed on the application, and they're the ones that handle the moving to the next steps.
Okay. But essentially, you're the ones who are the
Correct.
final clearance. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. All right, so here's this this question again. Vendor uses volunteers to facilitate their programs. Are these facilitators covered under the vendor status of the org, or do they need to complete the volunteer application for each school they enter? So just, we will probably talk about this a little bit more during vendor, but essentially, I know that the only folks that are cleared through the vendor status are those folks that the organization that you are putting on the paperwork. If you use volunteers, then your volunteers will have to go through this volunteer process as well. So it's who is going to be on your vendor paperwork that you approve as facilitators as a vendor approved organization. Otherwise, your folks are going to do the volunteer because everybody needs some kind of clearance to get into a CPS building.
Yeah, so that's more of a procurement question because
Yeah.
we'll take everybody. We'll just, we'll just make sure that we get them checked.
Awesome. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if there are any questions in the chat that you want to address.
There are a few questions in the chat. So someone had asked, Marissa had asked if we have folks that work for multiple organizations as volunteers, is there a way to have multiple organizations in their volunteer application?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two ways of doing that. Either when you're submitting your application in the beginning of the school year, you can list as many schools or organizations as you need, or you can always go back in by logging into your application, hitting edit, and you can add, again, as many schools or organizations so that they can see your application.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, essentially the application is you as the individual applying for volunteer status, and then it's just listing how many of the schools or whatever that you will be entering.
Correct, yes.
Let's see. Another question from Pam. Are the background checks run through the state as well?
Yes, so the level 1 fingerprint background checks are actually sent to the FBI, to the Illinois State Police, and to DCFS. Those are the 3 checks that are done. Additionally, from the other registry checks that we do for everybody, including level 2, those are done in-house here in CPS, which are the National Sex Offender Registry, Illinois Sex Offender Registry, and the Murder and Violence Offender Against Youth Registry of Illinois.
Great. I think the rest of the questions for now have been addressed by Kyla. Give me one more second to double check. One more organization asks, oh, this is more of a, how do we update the list of subcontractors as vendors? Madeline, we will get to your question when we swap over to vendor things. So for right now, most of the volunteer-based questions were either answered directly in the chat or verbally. So I think we can continue on.
Awesome. All right. Well, just one last comment. I know because earlier you had mentioned about partners entering CIS. So none of our partners will actually enter CIS of Chicago. Okay. You will all enter the name of the school that you are going into. So never putting CIS of Chicago in your application. Just saying that. Perfect. So if we could please all thank Lori and Kyla for your help today on the volunteer component. At this time, we're going to start talking about the vendor status. So we're going to start with a quick video again that breaks this down a little bit to lay down the foundation before we bring Nicole from procurement on. So.
How to become a CPS vendor. Chicago Public Schools works with vendors to provide high-quality goods and services to CPS students and staff. Organizations looking to partner in business with CPS have a couple of options to becoming a Chicago Public Schools vendor. The first is to receive a contract award from a contracting opportunity open to the public via a bid or RFP or RFQ. Or you can obtain a sponsorship from a CPS principal, CPS network chief, or CPS department director. If a school network or department has the intent to use your goods or services, they must log into Oracle and go under Internal Accounting or Web Inquiry to begin the process. This process must be initiated by CPS and approved by the principal, network chief, or department director, not the vendor. Once sponsorship information has been approved by a principal, chief, or director, the procurement team will review the vendor sponsorship request. If the sponsorship is accepted, a CPS supplier application will be sent to the prospective vendor for completion. If the sponsorship request is not accepted, procurement will notify the sponsor with a reason for the rejection. Only applications sent directly by procurement will be processed. This process must also be followed for vendors who need to be reactivated for a school or department to use. These numbers expire after a year of not receiving payment, so make sure yours is up to date. You will receive an invitation to fill out the supplier application. To complete it, you will upload the following documents: the W-9 form, the Certificate of Good Standing with the State of Illinois, the employee roster, and the Certificate of Liability Insurance being uploaded into Topiary. Next, you will determine which of your employees must have background checks and send them to accurate biometrics with the provided form. Then you will receive your vendor number. You may not begin working with a school until your vendor number is active, all employees have a clear background check, and a purchase order has been opened. In order to open a purchase order, the school must receive a quote from the vendor. Once the services are completed, you will submit an invoice to CPS. Ask the school to mark the purchase order received, and the accounts payable department will send a check. After completing these steps, you can start working with schools.
All right, thanks. I just want to preface again, we know that there are so many questions about vendor status and all of that. None of you through CIS of Chicago will be turning in purchase orders for work you do through us. Obviously, purchase orders will happen with other work that you do. Lots of nuances in this, and we're going to address everything the best that we can. So at this time, I am really excited to welcome Nicole. Nicole, if you can come on and introduce yourself, and we can start on the vendor process.
All right. Hello, my name is Nicole Waits. I am the vendor support manager at Chicago Public Schools. And I'm kind of like Lori. The video covered pretty much what I'm about to cover, but certainly sometimes it's always good just to hear it a little more verbal. But certainly they did cover the process. I just have two updates from those screens that I just want to make sure it's clear. But other than that, I think we're good, and I'll just start with the screens that we have. So, as they stated, there are two ways to come on board with CPS. That's either through our solicitation process or with a school sponsoring you. So, and basically sponsoring you meaning that they saying they want to use your services. So that means you as the vendor or potential vendor will have to solicit your services to these schools, right? We don't give you a map plan or anything. It's kind of like how you see fit to reach out to those schools and what communities you want to touch. You would just have to reach out to those schools directly, promoting your services. And if they're interested, then certainly they can sponsor you to bring you on board for sure. And when we say departments, oftentimes they reach out to us, right? Procurement cannot sponsor no vendor that procurement is not directly using, right? So, selling us an educational program, won't work, right? But sometimes we do need office supplies, or those types of things, but we have those up under contract. But the thing about it, my main goal is just to let you know, while we say departments and central office, that does not include procurement. We do not sponsor vendors. And if you came on board through our solicitation process, it's a bidding and awarding process that happens in order to bring you on. It's just not a procurement preference, but it's all about how the documents that you presented and how well you can accommodate the needs of our schools at a district level. So let's just go through the direct sponsorship process and how long does it take? Generally, if everybody is responsive, may take 30 to 60 days, right? But that take cooperation from everybody. And we'll kind of go through the timeline on what that kind of look like. Pretty much takes a day for the couple of hours for or a couple 15 minutes possibly for a school to sponsor it, right? Then it goes to their approver. Even if it's a department, it goes to their approver. So the requester possibly put it in and then their approver approves it. Once they have approved it, it then will come to my team, but possibly our ITS team. So depending on whether your products offer IT components, it may go to our IT team for approval just as well. But generally, if it doesn't have any type of ITS components, it come directly to my team. We'll take a look at it. If the services that you're providing are a contracted services that we have put restrictions on, we will reject it. However, if it is a service that we have not restricted, we will be able to bring you on board to provide those particular services. And once we have hit that approve button, what will happen is that you would then be emailed application that will come from purchasing at cps.edu with a link that you will click on. You will begin to complete that application with your company's information that we have requested. And once you have submitted that, if we can go to the next slide. So basically, once you have submitted that application to us, we will then review it a little bit deeper. Yes, this one. We will review it a little bit deeper as far as the information that you have put on and the documentations that you have provided just as well with that application. And please keep in mind, when I'm saying this application process outside of the sponsorship, the rest of these steps would apply whether you're new, reactivated, or going through attestation, right? These steps will apply for each one of those. Again, outside of the sponsorship, the rest of these steps I'm about to mention right now applies to every single vendor that comes through CPS as a district, okay? So again, so once we have approved that sponsorship, they will receive the application via that email from purchasing at cps.edu. They will complete it. And once they give it back to us, my team will take a look at it. We make sure that your W-9 is less than a year old. Your direct deposit form is less than a year old and completed. And keep in mind that W-9 has to be signed and dated with only one selected type, whether you're a single sole source or LLC, only select one of those. Sometimes we get multiple selections, not quite understanding that, but I do want to let you guys know, just select one of those options, certainly, and you just want to either put your social or your EIN number. Certainly, we do not need both because then we have to send it back to ask you which one are you looking to use. So again, with that W-9, then we also ask if you are LLC, corporation, LLP, or no cost, non-for-profit vendor. We also ask that you provide a certificate of good standing that you can receive from the state in which you originated from. We also, if you're outside of Illinois and you're providing tangible goods, anything that you can touch type of situations, we also ask for a certificate of registration, just saying that you are approved to sell items and paying of taxes that you need to pay for Illinois while you're providing those items to our Illinois schools. So those are the documentations that we ask for during our onboarding process. So then also if all of those checks out the way that we need to, we then will send your application, we will approve your application. If we find that you put a product code on there that the school did not request and it is a contracted item, we will also send it back to you and say, hey, I see you're trying to provide, I don't know, apparel. Unfortunately, you're unable to provide apparel. We would ask that you remove that particular code, and you have to agree to that. And you also have to agree that you won't sell those items, right? After we move forward with you. So keep that in mind just as well. So even if the school sponsor you and we got through that piece of it, if you put a code that's outside of what we originally approved, and if it's something that we have contracted, we can still reject your application technically if you do not remove those codes. So the next thing, like I said, once we hit that approve button, all vendors go to our insurance company, I ain't gonna say our insurance department for requirements. Not all vendors require insurance, but our risk team do have a matrix system that they put together. And if you are required to, they will certainly send you that information and whatever requirements they have stated that you need, you would have to provide that in order to move forward. So keep that in mind. You have to apply and get the type of insurance that they are requesting. Now, if you're going to be around our students, you would have to get background checked, right? Anybody that you plan to send to our schools, I know that was one of the questions, and that's anybody that you send into our schools have to be fingerprinted before they enter into our schools, and they have to be cleared before they enter into our schools. So please keep that in mind. Any vendor that's being sent to our schools are expected to have a background check, or if they are performing virtual services with our schools or with our students, they are expected to have a background check prior to having that interaction with our students. And again, it must be approved as well. Our background check team will send that approval email to you guys. So you want to make sure that you receive that before you send any of your employees to our schools for services. So there's also an IT component that we look for. I don't know whether you guys are familiar with the whole SOPR law, a different thing. So they also have to go to our IT team if we see that there will be some technical piece of it to see what type of data is being shared, whether it needs a contract or not, right? So we take a look at that just as well. So it would have to be reviewed by our IT team if you have an IT component to your application when we reviewing it. So let's just say you gave us the insurance, you cleared the background check. For the final approval, it'll come to my team again, come back to my team, should I say, and then that's when we will hit that approve button. And once we hit that approve button, that's when you can begin your services to our schools. Once you receive that vendor number, you are able to provide services at the entire district. You just need that one sponsorship. And after that one sponsorship, you are able to do business up to 35,000. That's just the update from one of the slides because it recently changed. 35,000 across the district now. I know some of you guys are used to the per school, per district, per this. Moving forward, we are moving in a direction it'll be 35,000 across the district. So it's not completely in place on all aspects, but we are tightening up and we're targeting certain groups to begin to move in that direction. So keep that in mind. At some point, it will be 35,000 across the district, as this is what we are moving forward to align with our rules, board rules, state rules. Okay. So that is the onboarding process. Again, it takes about 30 to 60 days. Is everybody responsive? If you do not reply to our application within 60 days, if it is a reactivation application, it will get rejected, which means you would have to get a new sponsorship in order to move forward at that point. If you respond within those 60 days, then you're good. But if you are an existing vendor, you get those same 60 days. However, if you don't respond in 60 days, your vendor number will go on hold first, right? And then we give you additional 90 days to reply. If you still do not reply within those 90 days, your vendor number will become deactivated and you will have to be sponsored again. So let's keep in mind, we always want to make sure that our contact information is up to date because we do email this information out to that primary contact. So always make sure that you are updating your information in that supplier portal to ensure that when we send these request is out, whether it's the new application or the reactivation or the attestation, that we have the correct information so that you can respond in a timely fashion when we do send that out. One other update I want to bring up is that it was saying that your vendor number will expire if you do not have purchase orders or school checks within a year. It actually is 15 months now, so you have 15 months to receive a PO or a school check. Otherwise, your vendor number will become deactivated if you are not doing business with CPS on a consistent base. So that's pretty much the two slides about the onboarding process. I do want to touch on because I'm jumping probably a little ahead with the questions, but since I didn't actually directly talk about no cost, I do want to take our time to just directly talk about the no cost piece of it and the no cost vendors. Oftentimes, our no cost vendors come from various areas, right? It can come from our OST team. It can come from our, if you had a technical component, right? And even though it's no cost, you still have to complete a no cost agreement. So with those no cost agreements, basically, again, it's somebody that's requesting your services again, and in order, and if you're going to be around our students, that no cost agreement is definitely have to be in place, right? This was put in place strategically to make sure that any vendor that is in front of our schools, whether it's free or whether we're paying, that they have a background check. Just because it's free doesn't mean that they legit enough to be around our students, right? Because sometimes that's an opportunity. So therefore, we have to make sure that they have a vendor number to make sure that they go through that background check to make sure that our kids, our students are in a safe environment when they are around these individuals. So please keep that in mind, whether the services are free or not. Please make sure that you have that no cost agreement in place so that your team can be background checked to ensure that our kids are safe at all times in those environments. And when you become a no-cost vendor, your vendor number is based off of that contract. Meaning, if your contract ends in June 30th, that means we'll give you 3 months. We'll give you to September to get a new contract. If you have no new contract or agreement, no cost agreement in place by September, your vendor number will become deactivated until someone else creates a no cost agreement for you. So again, your vendor number will be based off of that contract. Once that contract is over, you have 3 months to get a new one. If in 3 months you do not have a new agreement in place, your vendor number will become deactivated and you would have to be sponsored in order to come back on board. Now we can jump into the questions.
All
What
right.
sorry, go ahead.
No,
Thank you, Nicole.
yeah, thanks.
I've been monitoring the chat and trying to answer questions that I know the answer to so we can kind of streamline what we're getting from you. Madeline had asked a while ago, how does someone update the list of subcontractors as a vendor?
How do you update? That would have to be a buyer's question, right? I'm not quite sure about that, but certainly what commodity she's in, I can get her the buyer's name that she could possibly reach out to, but I wouldn't have that direct information.
Okay, great. Thank you. We will follow up about that then. Someone had asked, just to clarify, what are the current liability insurance requirements?
Again, that's a risk question. Unfortunately, I can't speak to that. I only can directly speak to the procurement processes. So like that risk, insurance, and details, too many details into the background piece of it. Unfortunately, I would not be able to get into those details because again, it is handled by a different team. I do apologize.
Yeah, let's go through some of the questions that were turned in from all of you during your registration, and then
sorry.
if that's okay, that's okay.
I jumped ahead.
You got excited. Let's go through some of these, and then yeah, like we said, I mean, stuff with insurance, that is risk management and all of that. So just kind of going through this real quick, some of these you have already answered, but we can reiterate. Benefits of vendor status. Well, if you want to get paid by CPS, you got to be a vendor. And obviously you will also have a more in-depth background check as a vendor as well. Is there anything else I'm missing basically on benefits of vendor status?
That and the simple fact, you're open to, I think Lori pointed this out, that you'll be open to all of the schools, right? It's not just one particular school that you can do business with. So that's one of the benefits, that you are able to do business at any of our schools once you get that vendor approval.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Again, I know that we talked about it, but approaches to find sponsorship. So there is the principal or network chief and all of that, or then just applying through. So if you want to just clarify the quickly approaches to find sponsorship.
Right. That's basically just soliciting your services, right? However you see fit, whether you want to pass out flyers to the schools, whether you want to try to set up meetings with the principal. I know they be extra busy, so that'd be a little complicated, but certainly just networking to these schools and to the departments outside of procurement, trying to solicit your services. That's the only approach, really, if you're not responding to our solicitations. The best at this point, I have to strongly suggest this is keep our solicitations in mind, anything that you feel like you can provide to us, because we are moving into a world that if it's not contracted, you're not going to be able to provide it. So you want to definitely keep in mind that. So if you're not doing contracted services, the only other way is to solicit your services to our schools directly.
And so for CIS of Chicago partners, we can connect you with a school principal based on a program or service that you offer. And, being able to reinstate that vendorship status or get vendorship status for the first time. And then you'll be able to do the program with that school after a principal sponsors you. So you can always reach out to your community partnership specialist for questions on that. Is there a way to see who all the CPS vendors are?
For an outside, no. You
Okay.
have to do a FOIA request if that's what you want to see. You have to do a FOIA. That's the Freedom of Information Act, and that can be found on our website just as well.
All right. Just curious because we get asked that one a lot. Like, is there a list? But totally understand. And then just quickly, how do I contact procurement? Guys, there is a link here that will be in the follow-up information. Like if you are a current vendor, there's a customer service link that you can fill out and someone will reach out to you, or we will also share contact information later. All right. Application type questions. If there's an amendment that they would like to make on their vendor application, how do they go about doing that?
So it depends on what's the amendment. So if it's just the contact information, you can always just go to the iSupplier portal to make that update. But if you wanted to amend, like say for instance, you wanted to add more services to your scope, then you will have to request that you go through a what we call a ad hoc attestation, meaning you basically have to fill out that application again. And the reason why you have to fill out that application again is because certain services require certain different needs, right? Different insurance needs. Maybe at first you didn't need a background check, but now the new services that you're providing, now you do need a background check. So that's why you basically have to go through that application process again so that we could take a look at those services that you're looking to provide to see whether we need further information or further requirements from your organization. So just going through that approval process again, it's called ad hoc attestation. And that just means it's because usually it's a yearly thing, right? But say for instance, it hasn't been a year, 6 months, and you have new services that you want to offer to our schools. You can request that. We will start that again, and then you can add those services, and then it will go through our approval process to see whether you're able to even provide those services, because sometimes you may not be able to and sometimes you will. So,
Great, thank you. So another question that we get a lot is, do no-cost agreements keep your status active? Or do organizations still need to have some sort of paid programming every 15 months?
so again, it wouldn't necessarily be based off of payment per se. With no cost agreements, it's based off of your contract, right? Now, if you switch over to being a supplier, then yes, you will have to have that 15 months. of transactions with our schools. But if you are a no-cost vendor and you're labeled as a no-cost vendor, your vendor number is strictly based off of that contract agreement that we have in place. Whatever month it ends, you have an additional 3 months to get a new one. Otherwise, whether you have payment or not, it will still deactivate because again, when you was brought on board, you was brought on board for that no cost.
Okay, so I know that partners out there, you also do have contracts with CPS where you are putting in a purchase order. So those purchase orders will keep your status active if you are strictly no cost and you want to be, the school needs to know, the district needs to know that you are cleared and that you're active and you're participating in programs. So starting that no cost agreement for anything like that is important and it does show activity.
Right, but the one thing I do want to mention because you got kind of is that you have to be labeled as a supplier then, right?
Right.
So you can still have a no cost agreement, but you still have to be labeled as a supplier. But if you're strictly labeled as a no cost agreement, that's when the POs, it doesn't matter whether you got a PO or not, you still would deactivate. But yes, it can be, but it has to just be supplier.
Yeah. I know it's so nuanced. It's crazy. Okay. Someone asked the question of what do we need to submit after we provide services? As far as no cost programming, I don't believe there's anything that needs to be submitted. It's just if they are charging CPS, then it's the PO that needs to be submitted.
Well, the PO need to be submitted before they do the services, but after the services, they would need to submit the invoice.
Invoice,
So the
thank you.
PO, right? So yeah, so the PO would definitely have to be done before the services, and then the invoice afterwards if you're being paid.
Great. Okay. How do I access the iSupplier system as a community partner? iSupplier, is that that's something that any approved vendor, that's the portal, right?
Yes. I'm not quite sure when they say as a community partner what that means, but if you
That's
are a
our
vendor,
partners.
okay, if you are a vendor with CPS and directly have a vendor number, you will be able to go to that iSupplier portal to I can give you guys the link as to how do I access it. There's just a link that you can go to be able to access that supplier portal. But 9 times out of 10, if you are a vendor with us, we have given you that access, that email address, but certainly not email, I'm sorry, that website. But certainly, if you need it, you can reach out to us through that ticket, or you can reach out to us through our numbers 773-553-2280, and we can provide that to you guys, or we can give it over to CIS and they can display it. But certainly there is a link for our supplier portal that you can go to at any time.
Great. And is that the same portal that someone would use to upload a new COI?
No, it is not.
Okay.
That's a different vendor. Topiary is the company that handles the insurance requirements for our risk department. So that is definitely a different website that you will have to go to upload your insurance. Now, I
Okay.
don't want to be confusing when I say this, is because because you do have to, like when you're going through the attestation process, you do have to, depending on if you're a contracted vendor, do have to submit insurance through the application process. But the official uploads of insurance must go through our third-party vendor called Topiary.
And that's a risk management department
Correct.
component anyway. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification on that.
No problem.
When do folks need to complete their attestation for 2026?
So honestly, it depends, right? You'll definitely get a notice. It's not a hardcore, July 1st. No, it's all it depends on when were you approved, for the last one, and depending on how you fall in the queue, right? It may be you may have done one September 16th last year, but you may not get the request into, September 30th right? Because it depends on how many people is in a queue at the time. We only can take so many at a time, so we send out 15 applications a day. So with that being said, it's definitely will be around that time. So around that time, you want to make sure that your information are up to date. We have the current and active contact person so that when we do send it out, you are able to. But in general, it's just a yearly attestation. So around that year mark, if you were approved, completely approved, that's when you want to begin to look for that email. But unfortunately, it's not a set date every time.
So dependent on your own application date process.
Correct.
Awesome.
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to open it up to Alexi and Lakia if there are any remaining questions right now in the chat.
Yes, there are. Give me a moment to double check. And excuse me, because I've been looking at the chat and trying to listen. So if I ask something that you already answered, Katya,
Okay.
jump in and answer it.
All right.
So there's been a few questions around for like background checks for folks that are vendors. Is that something that renews annually, or what's kind of the cycle on that? Did you guys ever answer that?
No, we didn't directly answer it here. I can only speak general, right? So I'm gonna repeat it. We on record. I'm only speaking general. Please, this is not in stone. Do not go back and say Nicole said anything, right? Because I'm not part of that team. But it is a general understanding that they do try to fingerprint vendors, right? Because when we get into those different vendor types, it may be different. Like they said, the volunteers is every year, right? For the vendors that I'm aware of, is 3 years, right? Now, whether they stick to that completely, whether you get a little more time or you right there at the 3 years, it may vary, right? Because it's not my department, but I do know in general, they try to make sure that the vendors' prints are done at least every 3 years.
Yeah, it does depend. I mean, I know that I've seen that some folks that work directly in childcare services, that's 5 years. Other people is 1 year. So yeah, it really does depend. And that's information that you'll get when you are going through the process and all of that.
There have been a few questions, and Katya, you may be able to explain this because I think you guys were talking about this earlier. For organizations that both charge for services and don't charge for some services. Say they work with a school where part of their services are at cost and some of them are free. Do the schools need to have a like PO and a no cost agreement for those different services?
Yeah, if you're charging the school, then you need to have that PO and that invoice. If you are doing programming for us through our no cost programs at our CIS schools, you need to have a no cost agreement. And those no cost agreements are ready and available. I believe the only one that is not ready is the out of school time programming. But even if you are not charging, you should be filling out that no cost agreement.
There's another question. So if someone is a vendor and they know they need to get some staff background checked, where can they go to kind of find the form for the background check? I feel like that's something that we know. Do I remember that?
So if you are a vendor with CPS, you should when you first came on board and you first got your first set of people background checked, they gave you a form, and you will just continue to use that form to add on any new members from your team from that. And if you ever need that again, Julie Mester from Acrobat Metric. You could reach out to her and she can resend it over to you. Again, that's Julie Mester from the Acrobat Metric. Certainly, if I need to give the email address for her, I can do that just as well. But in general, you definitely have received it. If anybody got fingerprinted, you definitely received that form, and you just want to keep reusing that form every time someone new come on board.
Yeah, yeah, your organization, admin, whatever should have that.
Thank you. There's another question. So earlier, and Nicole, you may not be able to answer this, so we can look into this as well. So during the volunteer training, they were kind of talking about there's background checks and there's also, video trainings that folks need to do. Do suppliers also need to do video trainings?
So, not at this time. Now, do I know that they working on something? Yes. Do it apply to what Lori them team doing, and that's where they put that at? Maybe so, right? I know we was working on some type of training where it lives, where it stays, and where it resides at. I don't know how that's gonna look, right? Is it just for the the Lori world that they do the training, or whether it's gonna come over to the vendor side of things just as well? I have been part of the conversations that they was talking about that, but to say that it's in place today, it is not. But it's not to say that it won't eventually come.
Great, thank you.
Great. Okay, this one's a little in the weeds and I don't understand all the language in it. But so here, let me just show it to Katya.
I mean, out of school task orders, I mean, anything paid or even discounted, that's still a purchase order.
So the question is, when do we need to submit out of school time task orders for only paid services? What about paid or discounted services? So anything where there's going to be an exchange of money with CPS will need that task order or PO. And right, we said that happens like before the programming starts. So yes, you would need it even if it's discounted. It's only if it's entirely free would you go through the no cost agreement.
Right.
What is the difference between a supplier and a vendor?
There's no difference.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, it's the same thing, just
Right.
language.
We use it interchangeably. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. I think I got to most of the questions.
Okay.
At least generally.
Generally speaking, yeah. All right. And you know, as we've reiterated a few times, if you have any other questions, you can reach out to your community partnership specialist, and we will do what we can to get those answers and connect you to the right folks. So thank you, Nicole, for answering all of those questions. You know, thanks again to Lori and to Kyla. I want to thank all of you for participating in this session today to continually try to support all of the questions that you have. So that concludes our training. I'm going to throw a quick poll up on the screen, and I just want to thank you for all of the amazing work that you all do for our students, and we couldn't do it without you all in for kids. So thank you so much to everybody. And here we go. I'm going to launch this one out for you. And have a great rest of your day.